Yeah, too easy.
Okay, man. Well, Brad Murphy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. Glad to get to know you over the last couple of years. For those that don't know yet, Brad and his family are run the Red Bridge Farm out of Kettle Falls, Washington, and they've become our feed supplier for our cattle grower, our swine grower, our poultry grower, soon to be our turkeys that we're adding here this week. And a lot of the community in which we live, people have been kind of jumping on the transport from Eastern Washington over to our farm and picking up some feed from us from you. And we're just thrilled to know you. We got a chance, of course, as you know, to come visit you a couple of months back
Hmm.
and see the operation. And I wanted to take a few minutes and kind of capture your story in this medium. This is Irish Mike's Farm Table Podcast. We're trying to highlight people that are supporting the kind of smaller farm community and find other stories that we are interested in as we continue to get to know people that are doing like-minded work.
Yeah,
So with that, I
sounds great.
wanted to kind of kick off with just tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, and kind of what led you on this journey to making this super high quality feed at the Red Bridge Farm.
Yeah, so it originally started, many years ago. We got into raising pastured poultry on our farm, and through all of that, our customer base really wanted no soy, no corn in the feed that we were using, and so we were trying to pursue how do we do that. And what we ended up figuring out was that as we were pursuing it, there were options out there, but none of them were hitting the targets that we were really shooting for. We were looking at our meat birds, and actually, the very first time I raised meat birds, I was telling all my customers, we're going to have these 4 and 5 pound butchered birds, and we got to our butcher date, and I butchered them, and they were all 2.5 to 3 pounds, and I had not a clue of how to actually gauge my birds and know how big they were going to be, and all this stuff as I'm going through it. And it turned out that our what it really worked out to was that our feed just didn't that we were buying wasn't able to produce the weights that we were looking for. And so through that, we started really pursuing how do we make our feed better? How do we figure out how to do this? And so a friend of mine was talking to me at the time and was like, "Hey, why don't you start with pig feed?" And that's really simple. You just throw some barley and peas together and throw a mineral pack in there, and it's fine. I'm like, okay, well, that sounds easy enough. Why not? And so started doing that, and then I ended up buying our grinder mixer that we used for many years for about $2,000 off of a guy. It was a 1974 International 1150, and made for a cow calf operation kind of concept, or a beef operation, and we put it through the ringer. Um, Finally just retired it about 2 months ago when we finally got our new equipment all installed. So um, I don't know how many millions of pounds of feed we put through it, but way more than it was supposed to. But um, anyway, so we started pursuing that and started figuring out how do we make feed that's going to hit the targets that we really wanted to hit. And started doing the research behind it, linked up with our nutritionist that we have now through Fertrell with Jeff Maddox. And he really helped us hone in on making feed that was going to be effective for the birds, and not just grow your birds, but help them to hit their targets exactly where you want them to hit, and to be able um, to hit the numbers that we needed to be successful and be able to make money in farming, which is hard to do. Um, so that's where we kind of got into it. And our first batch of birds that we ran um, with Jeff's feed, I think we ended up cutting 2 weeks of growth time off of our birds and adding, I think it was over 2 pounds of gain in that same amount of time. And so, oh no, these stinking GoPros, man. Okay. So you'll edit right there.
No problem.
Oh, sorry, Mike.
It's all
All
good.
right.
All good.
I should have brought the other camera. Um, It's supposed to be able to just record it and
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, it looks like you're back. You were.
I was back. Okay. Well, I don't know. We'll go with that.
Yeah,
All
okay.
right.
So
Okay.
you were saying
Um,
that you got a couple of more pounds per bird. You cut down the growth time. I think that's where we
yeah.
started losing you there for a
Yeah, it
sec.
was cut down the to 2 weeks less growth time and 2 more pounds of growth inside of that time frame. So, that was 2 weeks of less feed in the peak of when the birds are eating the most, at that very end of life. And then to add more weight with less feed was like, we got something huge here. This is really cool. And it was all on corn and soy free, which was, again, everybody's like, no, you can't do it. Can't raise birds on corn and soy free. Well, you can. You just have to do it with the properly um, created nutritional ration. You can't just throw some peas and barley and wheat at them and call it good. That doesn't work. You have to finely tune the proteins and all of our amino acids and everything so that they hit all the marks that the birds need in order to actually grow properly. Um, so Jeff helped us do that, and through his guidance and his work, he's helped us to create all the different rations that we work with now. We work very closely with Fertrell with all of our nutrition, and they've done great work for us.
I love that. I love that you hired or contracted a nutritionist to consult with you to really design feed that kind of goes against the modern feed system, right? I mean, if you go to the big boy brands that have been around for a long time or all around the country, you're going to find different ingredients in their bags than in yours.
Mhm.
Is that fair to say?
Oh, absolutely. And oftentimes even then, if you go look at any of these big box stores, the brands that they have there, on the back of the feed label, it's going to say grain products, grain byproducts, you know, um, and that could be any number of different ingredients inside of those, because what they do is they like to hone in on what can I buy cheap right now. And so I'm going to buy wheat and put that in there today because that's cheaper than the barley was the other day. And I don't need this much corn because corn's expensive right now. And so they can balance that. And what that ends up doing is that makes it so that the ration isn't always the same. So I can't feed wheat the same way that you might feed triticale or barley or something like that. It's different. It might be a grain, but it's different. The birds process it differently. And so when you have those differences in there, if you're changing the ration all the time, you as the customer will never quite know, is it going to perform the same way that it did last month or the time before that? Difference with what we do is we always buy the exact same ingredient every single time. So when it says wheat on the feed, that's what you're getting. You're getting wheat in there at the appropriate levels into there. We don't ever mix it and say, oh, well, I can get barley. Barley's only 10 cents a pound right now. Wheat's 20 cents a pound. I'm going to switch. We don't do that. It it never changes. So the ration's always the same. So you can always expect the same results out of it.
I love it. Well, so this is good timing to have this conversation because we just did our annual chicken harvest this past weekend. We had
Uh-huh.
22 chicken just for us. We're not selling any of these. And from day one, well, day two, I guess, of their life before they landed in our mailbox, um, they were all 100% on your feed, your starter and then your grower. Meat birds,
Yeah,
we did a mixture of the Cornish cross, or as some people call them, the sea monsters. And then
that's
we
right.
did half Freedom Rangers just because we had never done it before and we wanted to see it. I think it was 8 weeks almost to the day. And from kind of start to finish, again, 100% on Red Bridge Farm uh, feed. And we weighed a
Hmm.
couple of our finished birds. They were over 5 pounds.
Seriously. Yeah.
They were so big and so healthy. We usually, it seems like we'd have some sort of we joke that when one of the legs turn out funny, because these guys grow so quick, we always
Right.
have a clubber lang in the group, right? Some knobby, legged chicken.
Uh-huh.
The only other tweak that we made is we set up some poultry netting to give them an opportunity to wander around a little bit more than
Right.
maybe they were before. We use a chicken tractor and all that sort of thing.
Hmm.
But I'm telling you, this was the food that they were eating was so good that when I cut them up on Sunday into quarters, and they cut out the breast, and I got it all prepped for the freezer. It was some of the most beautiful chicken meat that we've ever seen, and I'm not exaggerating just because you're on it.
Awesome.
So you designed a world class feed, and the confidence with the no corn and the non GMO and the no soy, which we'll get into that in a
Mhm.
second, is just fantastic. It makes us really happy, and the people that were helping us just couldn't believe how healthy every bird looked. So how about a
Awesome.
thank you?
Well, you're welcome.
So that's
My guys
awesome.
make really good feed. I don't do a whole lot of it anymore.
Well, you had the
My
vision, right? I mean, you had the vision to kind of get it right.
yeah, yeah. We've always designed it to run that same way, and we don't ever skimp on the quality of which we put into there.
I love
And
it.
that's always been our goal is you can go anywhere and buy feed, and you can buy some really crappy feed, and you can buy some really good feed, and we're never the cheapest, but we'll always be the best.
I love it. Well, as you know, we're big fans. Well, when we got a chance to visit you a few months back, we were kind of surprised that you had taken over a big building, a big enterprise that
Yeah.
was doing something else for a while. Tell me why Kettle Falls in particular, and why that building, and a little bit of that story.
Well, our farm is just 15 minutes south of here over in Colville. And, as we started expanding, we were operating inside of our barn. And it was a pole barn that we built from the understanding that we were going to be doing chickens and stuff like that. And so when we switched over to the feed, I think it was, what was it, 20 by 30 size, something like that. So it barely fit the tractor in there with the mixer if it was raining, to just get out of the rain, not run anything. So once you start bringing in all the ingredients and everything else, it was like there was no space. There'd be times where I'd have my driveway would just be lined with super sacks of all of our different ingredients while I'm out there trying to make feed. And I mean, we started with, I would have a pallet scale and like 15 buckets, and I would go and scoop out of this one and put them on the scale and get how much I needed, and then run it over the mixer and throw it in the grinder. and
Oh my
and I was in a
gosh.
lot better shape back then. um and and it got to the point where we were just, we were going, that's where we started. And slowly but surely we got a forklift. And then when this location that we're in now came onto the market, it used to be the country store. And long time ago, it was a place called Furman's Feed. And they did livestock feed here. I think Steve Furman did, if I remember right, he came back from Vietnam and decided he wanted to get into feed. Didn't know anything about it. Bought the place, worked with the Purina nutritionist, and they made feed for Purina for years up here. Steve sold it, I think, in the early 2000s, and then through changed a couple other hands through the time. But then ultimately we bought it from um, the owners who were leasing it to Country Store, and they weren't doing anything with the silos. The old mill building was pretty much empty. And but for us, it was this huge amount of space. I mean, remember, I was operating in 20 by 30 foot space, and when it rained, I actually built a tent with a tarp over top of everything to try and still make the orders that we needed to go. And so when I got here and we actually ended up moving into the building, I was spinning cookies with the forklift in the mill because I was like, there's so much space. I could move all over the place. And now the guys are like, there's not enough space here. I'm like, well, it's because we're growing.
Yeah, good problem.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's cool. I mean, it's got that classic post World War II silos, right? Aren't those I don't know if it was you or somebody else that said as you drive through Eastern Washington in particular,
Mhm.
there's a whole bunch of silos that have that cylindrical, concrete,
Yeah,
look to
that's
them.
due to after they built the Grand Coulee Dam on Lake Roosevelt, they had all these concrete workers that needed work. And so I don't know who did it, but somehow they then went from doing all that dam work to then making these silos all across the eastern Washington, and they're everywhere. You know, if you start really looking for them, they're all over the place. And the concrete work is just phenomenal. You
Yeah, it
know,
probably will never go bad, right?
no, no. In fact, I had a guy tell me he had cut a hole into the side over there for a chute that they were making, and he told me he's never seen concrete so tightly made. Like there was no air pockets, nothing in it. You know, I mean, it's like, yeah, those guys knew what they were doing.
They knew
You
exactly
know.
what they were doing. Yeah. I grew up in Spokane, and of course I didn't realize what I was looking at. And then as you told me that story, and one of the kids goes to WSU, another one of the
Hmm.
kids goes to Gonzaga. So we're back over there a whole bunch. And in fact, one of our pig uh, growers is over there in the Palouse. And so, yeah, now I can't miss it.
Oh
They're
yeah, they're
pretty
everywhere.
cool. Well, you
And
have a
some have
great,
been greatly expanded.
yeah, I bet. Yeah. Yeah, really, really cool facility that you have there to make it all work. Um, so we touched on it a little bit, but I want to shift into you're known for the non-GMO, no corn and no soy in the feed, but why is that important? There's a lot of, I joke that research on the internet, you just, you can find something to back up your claim no matter what it
Sure.
is that you're looking for. So,
Oh
but
yeah.
from your perspective, why is that important?
For us, it's kind of grown over the years, honestly. Originally, I didn't understand any of it. You know, it made no sense to me. Um, you know, as we pursued into better food and quality of foods, um, it was really originally it was driven by our customer base who we were speaking with at the farmers market when we were selling our chickens. You know, they were dictating, we don't want corn and soy. I'm like, why not? I don't know, you know. Um, and so I asked, you know, why don't you want corn and soy? And you know, you get all kinds of answers. There's good ones, and then there's some really off the wall answers that you just never know, like the aliens are bugging us with, you know, whatever, you know.
Right.
But ultimately the biggest one, you know, was that a lot of people don't necessarily trust that the non-GMO soy or non-GMO corn is really non-GMO. I think that's the biggest one that I hear a lot, is to not be able to trust that it truly is an organic or a non-GMO certified. Did they get cross contamination, any of that kind of stuff? You don't know. And so to start, that was kind of the biggest one, was, oh, people don't trust that. So they just, why why play with it if you can just not have it, period. And then the second one was, our goal has always been to use feeds that are locally produced right here. If I can, I'd like it to be here in the county as best I can. And we don't grow corn or soy in Stevens County. It just doesn't grow here. We grow a lot of wheat, barley, alfalfa, cows, lots of cows,
Yeah.
you know. Um, and so for that matter, we use the ingredients of which we have here. You know, down in the Palouse, they grow a ton of peas down there. And so peas are a big protein source for us. And so, you know, we use wheat, we use peas, we use barley, um, we use oats on occasion, alfalfa, camelina, canola, um, and then all of our vitamins, minerals, amino acids, all those different micro ingredients that we need to finely tune the nutrition.
I love that. We touched on that a little bit, or you had, um, about how you arrived at some of the ratios.
Hmm.
Um, I wanted you to go a little deeper if you could. I know you had said you'd hired a nutritionist, some consultants to kind of help you figure all that out on what's the best for each of these animals, right? Again, we buy, the bovine, the swine, and of course some of the
Hmm.
and the birds. Um, but how did you arrive at that? I mean, is it really, a pencil and some ratios and a calculator, or, tell me a little bit more behind the curtain.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that you can really get into. Like, um, you know, for instance, I have Nutrient Requirements of Poultry. This is the ninth revised edition from the National Academy Press, and there's in here is just tons of data on what you should be doing, how you feed your birds, all these different things. And to be honest, I didn't know any of this at first, and I am not, I am first generation doing this kind of stuff. So there was a lot of research and reading. And this is stuff that Jeff, our nutritionist, told me, says, go out and get this and read it, and start digging into the nutritional requirements. And this has everything from your egg layers to your turkeys to anything. And inside of it, it has all your different protein levels, all your different, your amino acids, everything you need, all the different ratios for the different ages of groups of birds, of what kind of egg production you're looking for, all the different stuff. And so tons of data in there. And this is what the main companies use when they're building those rations, at least behind the design of them is a lot of that data. And that's what a lot of what Jeff uses when he's building our stuff. And at the same time, Jeff has also been making rations since the early 90s. So he's well versed in this. And he was actually, Jeff was the one that made the original rations for Joel Salatin back in the day.
Oh, wow.
And so he's got a lot of knowledge behind him. So usually when he talks and he tells me things, I kind of just shut up and listen. And, or if I don't understand something, I'm like, Jeff, what is this? And he tells me, he's like, Brad, you just need to learn this stuff. I'm like, I'm working on it, Jeff, you got a few years on me here, but no, but ultimately, it's a lot of research, a lot of learning. And, 9 times out of 10, I lean on Jeff for our rations to make sure, if I have a question or a customer comes to us and says, I really want this in my feed. Well, what is that going to do? Oh, you want to put, I don't know, what was some of the weird ones? Oh, I want a gluten-free ration. I've had that one a couple times. I'm like, gluten-free? What are you talking about? And, it was actually what was interesting with that one is that the lady that was wanting that would break out in hives just from the gluten in the air on the wheat.
Whoa.
And so it was like an extreme case, right? And so that's why she was looking for a gluten-free ration. Because I'm like, the gluten's not going to pass through your birds. That doesn't make any sense, and it turns out that wasn't the issue. It was the issue of when she was feeding her birds. I was like, oh, okay, that makes more sense.
Sure.
I understand that one, but all that kind of stuff. That's the stuff where I take it to Jeff. I'm like, if we take wheat out, what is that going to do to our feed? How do we balance this appropriately so we still hit the marks? And sometimes he goes, you can't, we need these ingredients in there in order to make a proper feed, and other times we can do stuff, but sometimes what the customer asks for just isn't really a ration that they would really want. They just heard somewhere or read it somewhere. And when you start balancing things, you got to look at it and understand, is that truly the best for my animals? So,
Well, and
yeah.
I think that you just kind of drilled down on it. I mean, what is best for the animal? Again, we're one of your customers. You probably have hundreds, if not thousands, and we see the difference when we cut open, our pork last year, and it was fed 100% on your swine grower. Our
Yeah.
butcher said this is one of the best pork chops I've ever seen. He literally said, whatever you did this year, which is 2023, do it
Uh-huh.
exactly the same next year.
Right.
He goes, that's it. And it's not overly complicated. We're not, bleeding, the bakery buns and all that. And we know
Mhm.
pigs eat all that. And some people, are really into all that sort of thing. We even
Yeah.
worked with a local group getting leftover mash from a brewery. And we
Yep.
tried that and they ate it and it's fine. And it'll probably ultimately be okay. But then we
Mhm.
just kind of drew a line in the sand last year and said, we're not going to do it. We're going to go all in on this designed feed,
Yeah.
and it's going to work for us. And it did. And we were so happy with the results. And so are our customers that they came back. And I think that's ultimately when you have an inch and a half, fat on a perfectly pink pork chop that you serve your family on a Tuesday evening, you're winning at life. You know what I mean?
Right. Oh, yeah. No, and that's really, that's kind of how we got into it as well. It was a matter of, um, I guess when our, well, I'm trying to multitask here and I shouldn't do that. My camera turned off again.
No problem.
All right. Um, but yeah, and that's kind of where we got at into it because, like I said at the beginning, we started in on pigs ourselves and feeding just a couple of those extra ingredients, trying to cut the cost and make it, throw whatever at them. I see a lot of customers do that where, they'll go and they'll buy or they'll get all the grocery waste or whatever like that. Not to say that that's not good. There's a place where that's a good fit for some things. If you're trying to um, clean up grocery waste or something like that, feed it to an animal to make it so that the animal produces protein that we can then use. That's good. Um, our goal, our design is more to provide meat at that premium level, where, if you're selling this to a customer, you want them to come back to you every time and buy those pork chops at $12 to $15 a pound, because that's how you continue to do this every year. If you're trying to sell it like grocery store pork where they're getting, 350 a pound, or probably not even that anymore. It's been so long since I bought meat.
Right.
Um, you know, um, you can't make money in that, as a farmer,
Right.
as a small farmer. We're not producing, 10,000 hogs, in 10 by 10 panel, on concrete. That's not how we're doing it. Oftentimes we're running our pigs out on pasture or we have them in a paddock, and what in the world, this camera? And, and that's, ultimately when we're doing those things, we have that relationship with the animal where we have, um, we might have 10, or 20 hogs that we're running. And we really want those to produce really, really well so that when we sell those, that half or that whole or those cuts, they are the best that they could
Right.
possibly be, and flavor makes the difference in that. If that animal tastes phenomenal, when we were selling pigs at the farmer's market or pork at the farmer's market, I would have our bacon, over here in Colville, I was selling bacon at $12 a pound. And people were coming in telling me it was the best bacon they've ever had. And I can't believe this. And, give me 3 packs. I'm like, oh, okie dokie, let's do this, sweet,
Sure.
and you're making a premium product. And so we were charging premium prices for it. But, somebody told me a long time ago, I can't compete with Walmart, you know? And so in order to not compete with Walmart, I have to be better. How do I be
Right.
better? And that's going to
Well,
be,
and we know
yeah.
it starts with the, genetics, of course, with of the animal and good
Mhm.
heritage, but then ultimately what it is that you eat. I mean, I never bought in personally for a long time this concept, and I probably just rejected it out of because I'm stubborn. You eat what your animals eat, and of course
Oh
it's
yeah.
completely logical that is exactly what we're doing. And but now I fully get it because we now have most of our animals we've had since day one. Now we're at a point
Right.
in our farm growth year 5 where our cows that I can look out over my computer here, um, they were born here. They haven't had
Right.
a bad day in their life. They've eaten nothing but really good hay. And then as part of our grower, the bovine ration and things like that, and they're just super duper healthy. And we're trying to do
Hmm.
something a little bit different than some of the even the small cattle farmers that I've become friends with. We're these guys are pasture raised their entire life, you know,
Right.
and so anyway, we can go wax poetic on that forever. I wanted to shift into something that I didn't know anything about. Your website talks about it. I asked you about it in person, then you showed us, and that's this cavalry oil. I know the cavalry, I think, is a connection to some of your military past, but tell us about that. And I want to go a little deeper on this because, there's a lot of stuff out there about canola oil and what that's all about. But take us through that
Hmm.
and what it is, why, and so forth.
Yeah, so I mean the oil was, so kind of going deeper into the subject with it, we started pressing our own canola oil right after the Ukraine war kicked off. And that was mainly, um, we were buying oil by the tote at the time, 275 gallons at a time. And we were getting it was pressed out of Montana. And we would buy 1 to 4 totes at a time, depending on the year or the time of year. And the war kicked off, and we were buying oil. I think it was right around 97 cents a pound is what we were buying it at the time. And the war kicked off, and I got a call from our salesman over there, and he told me, you need to buy at least, what was it, 12 totes, and it's going to cost you $1.75 a pound to get that price. And that's the best price we can give you, and we won't have anything more until harvest. And this was in March, and harvest is now happening in the next 2 weeks. I was talking to my buddy this morning about it, and he's getting ready to harvest 2 weeks from now for his canola. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, 12 totes, and
That's almost
they're
double.
275 pounds each, or 200 or 2,000 pounds each, excuse me, 275 gallons each. And um, we had to buy it, or we weren't going to have any oil for our season, which we were just getting ready to start for the season. And it's like, what do we do? And we did. We ended up buying it because we needed to produce, and we needed to be able to do what we promised for all of the farms that we were working with. And but at that same time, we were like, surely we can do something better here. What else can we do? And we had been pursuing pressing our own oil ourselves. Anyway, so we started into pursuing how to press oil ourselves, and found a company that we could purchase small expeller pressers from. They're made in Germany, and shipped into the United States. And so we ended up buying 2 of them and installing them in our store, where people can actually come and they can see it all working and operating. And and through that, we started, then we could buy canola from our locals right here, which again went back to our mission of buying from the locals here in the county, not having to buy outside. So we were able to do that, and then um, we can crush it all here. And so I can guarantee I know exactly what happened to it. And so with that, a lot of the issues that we get, oftentimes people will come in and they'll be like, oh, you use canola in your feed, do you know what they do to that? And, if you go and Google problems with canola out there, you're going to find all kinds
All
of
kinds of
craziness,
stuff.
right?
Yeah.
And some of it's true. And some of their, if you go buy standard canola off the shelf, Walmart brand canola oil, something like that, whatever, it's not going to be the best for you, and some of it is the way that they process it, and how they go about doing all that stuff. And so, when the chemicals that they use to extract the oils, so they get a better extraction of the oil from the seed, it's, they say they remove it, but again, it's that trust issue, right? It's that a
Right.
matter of, can I trust what they're telling me? How much data has really been given on how well this is really done? Um, that's a big issue right now, with a lot of things. How much money is lining the pockets of those who are creating the policies, so
Sure.
that you can still get it through. You just don't know. And so rather than guessing or playing the game, we crush it ourselves,
Well, and
and
you
so
had mentioned in person too. You first of all, it's wide open. Anybody can go into your shop and they can see it happen.
yeah,
It's not behind in some lab somewhere, top secret, whatever. And you also, I
right,
think, mentioned that the big companies use either chemicals and or kind of a hot method, and yours is the cold press, which is a touch slower, but
right,
it's really a pure process. I mean, you're literally doing nothing. I watched it with my own eyes.
Yeah.
it slowly, the two things push on it, slowly extracts, it slowly extrudes, it slowly drains, into the tote. And it's about as clean of a process as I could ever imagine.
Yeah. In fact, if you want, I can pull up a video and we could show it on here if that would help you.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Okay. Let me,
And while you're doing that, maybe tell us a
yeah.
little bit about, what uses the cavalry oil are best for around a farm. I think you listed to me, and I don't remember exactly what they were, but several different uses that were super important to the health of the animals.
Yeah. And it's, by creating it ourselves, like I said, we can guarantee what it is. And so the reason we got into the cavalry oil was another use for our oil. And so we ended up we have um, a vitamin mineral mix that we put with it. And so it's all top dressed over the feed so that the customer can put it on whatever feed they're currently feeding. And so it's got like probiotics, digestive enzymes. There's um, let me see, there's a full vitamin mineral mix in with it. And then um, it's got the high omega 3s from the canola. And so it turns out to be a really good, um, oftentimes we find it's a good, what's the word? It's a cold energy, I think they call it for the horses. So a cool energy. So it helps them to have the energy that they need without getting really hot.
Hmm.
And like with sugars and stuff like that, that will cause your horse to get really hot. And so it helps them to be able to work without getting high strung or whatnot. And then um, in addition, what we found has really been helpful is it is helped put a lot of horse weight on there, or a lot of weight onto the horses, especially those hard to keep ones. I hear it quite often actually in here. I just had a guy in here the other day. He's one of the farriers around here, and he's been been selling the stuff out there for us. And he says it works really phenomenal to help put that weight onto the horse and help them keep the weight, whereas they were not getting that weight gain before that.
Hmm.
And um, so that's I mean, that's essentially why we really boiled into it, and wanted um, to make it, because we had the ability to make a really high end feed and the oil, and, we can make the high end oil here. And so by doing that, let's create something else that people are in demand for, and so that's kind of where we went with it.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, that's a cool thing. And sorting out some of the myths and again, just by the process itself, I mean, that's a big differentiator. And on that note, you had mentioned a couple of times, but a lot of your raw ingredients, if not all, you said are in Stevens County, or right there locally, or at least locally sourced. And so tell me about
Yep.
that and why that's important to, I assume part of it's just economic benefit to the area, of course. Less travel
Mhm.
time, not big trucks, trains, whatever it is that would bring, raw ingredients in. But tell me why
Yeah.
that's important to you guys.
Yeah, and I mean that's a big one. There's the matter of having um, less of a carbon footprint as best we can, to limit that. If I'm not trucking grain from Kansas all the way over here, that's truck time, that's carbon monoxide that's all being produced. And if I can buy it just down the street, I just had a load of wheat get delivered here this morning that came from around the Deer Park area, and so that's what, 45 minutes away
Love it.
instead. So
Right.
um, it's just better, and then the money that people are buying our feed, that's going back into my community here and supporting those farmers here. And I get to make that relationship with the farmer. And so they are then, um, we're working together to make the better product rather than buying it from, not to say that Kansas farmers don't know what they're doing or who they are. I just don't know them. I know Chris down the street who brought me wheat this morning, we've built a good relationship over the years, and so it's a lot different um when I'm working with a local right here, where we can tell them, this is what we're looking for, and they go and grow it, so
Well, and,
um
and and then that's what we're doing, right? We have built a relationship with you and your family and your farm, and your feed, program. And here we are, in Lake Joy, just outside of Seattle, small farm, less than 26 acres. And we're growing, the animals that we're growing. And it feels good to partner with somebody that we can talk to and we can ask questions of, who is doing it, from a similar view, meaning supporting the local economy, supporting the community, and frankly, bringing a big product and shrinking it down to where it's kind of better for everybody.
yeah, yeah. So if you want, I got that video queued up.
Yeah,
I
let's
can,
look at it.
oh, let's see. Let me go there. And so this is what I call as a time trial, or one of our initial trials. So it's not the best video, but it gives a visual of what we're doing here. So, um, we can see right here the oil, the seed is going up uh, the screw.
The auger,
Auger,
just
yep.
like my smoke pellet smoker.
Yeah, nice and slow. And so when we're doing with this is it's going up, and we put this all on a timer, so it's able to feed into the top. Right up on top there is a hopper, and then you can see, if I can point it out, right up in this area is the oil dripping down right there. Oil
Yeah.
is coming across, and then we have the meal, which is that these pellets that are coming out. And so the meal is what we put as a high protein, goes back in, the oil drips down. We then send it to a big bin that we use in the back with all of our um, different feed there. And so there we go. And so yeah, that's essentially the process. It's cut and dry that quick, and it's just there's a screw inside of there that is just turning, and that's just crushing the seed as it goes to then extract the oil. The oil just gets squeezed out, and so it's a cold pressed um, extraction process. So we, expeller, cold press expeller. And so it's not using a lot of high heat or anything like that. It's usually between 80 and 120 degrees when it comes out. So there's no denaturing of the proteins or anything inside of it, and it gives us the best product that we can get. And yes, it's slower and we don't get as much oil extraction out of the seed, but we get a better product out of it.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Um, Couple more questions, and we'll wrap up. If you had a way to train, in quotes, your farmers and customers on how to grow their animals or run their farms, what would you say or suggest? Somebody comes up to you and, hey, what can I do better? From your chair, Brad,
Hmm.
to be either a better farmer, a better, more responsible raiser of animals, ultimately to either feed our own families or to, sell and share with our community.
Yeah, I think, for me, the best thing has always been to have mentorship, through things. There's a lot of people doing this out there now. And there's a lot of people that want to offer assistance and want to help if you ask, that's something I've always been up for, is when someone calls me up for the first time and says, we're starting to raise birds. What do we do?
Mhm.
And how much feed do I need, or how much of this, that, or the other? I think we've even done this a couple times,
Totally.
and it's that learning process, and you don't know what you don't know, and I don't know how many thousands of hours I have gone through things, and over the years, and made mistakes on stuff, and And so I've always been one where, if you have mentors behind you, like Jeff is a mentor in the feed world for me, where I can call him and say, hey, I got a customer with this issue, what can we do here, and be able to lean on that person to help you become better, so that when Mike Smith from Lakejoy calls me and says, hey, Brad, I have this issue, I can go, oh yeah, I know these things, we
Right.
figured these out, and we can help work together to make this feed better, or to make your product better, rather than you having to go it alone, because ultimately at the end of the day, you shouldn't be going alone. So build the community around you, I think, is kind of the biggest thing, is you might have other people doing the same thing you're doing, but there's so much business out there, it's not necessarily competition for you. So
Right.
work together to build the better products, so that you guys can bounce ideas off each other, network together, and figure out, I just had this issue. What have you had this issue, and you guys can work things out together. And
Well, it's a good
um,
case in point. I think just the other day I called because we're adding turkeys. It's our first time. And
mhm.
I knew who to go to. I knew you'd have the answer. Because you had the thousands of hours invested into the research and experience and all that sort of thing. And I think you were pretty quickly able to tell me, here's how much food you need to be able to feed these turkeys and why,
Right,
every
right,
day, what they need access to, and here's what you can expect in the amount of time that you'll get them from kind of day 2, 3, until harvest day. And
right,
there was a lot of confidence now in me that we can take on this, new animal, both for our, Thanksgiving turkeys ourselves and even a handful of friends, that we're going to do it right. And of course, we now have this really great track record of the birds and the pork and everything else with food that you've created for us. And so great example. I love the mentorship. There's something about the homesteady community that is really helpful.
yeah,
Yes, a lot of us are selling beef or we're selling, pork or something. But I have run into almost no one that I can think of, at least, that's not willing to share any of the, we'll call it trade secrets or whatever.
sure, yep,
And it's a really cool community that way.
right,
Because it wasn't that long ago, we just did it for our own survival. We weren't necessarily trying to, feed other people or even make a couple of dollars on it. It literally was the family pig, the family beef,
right,
right?
yep,
And we just had to make it work for ourselves. Otherwise, we weren't going to be able to feed our families, for the following 6 months to a year. So I love that
right,
mentorship. That's the only way we've been able to tackle, any of the things that we have in a short amount of time. People ask, well, how did you go from kind of finance to farming, And I'm like,
right,
well, I'm still in finance, technically, so I'm not making $1 zillion off it. That's for sure. But it's
right,
because I had great people around me and I was willing to ask questions, and you kind of sort through a couple of them. They're like, I don't necessarily need to ask that person that question again. And you start,
sure.
collecting some of the data points, and then you start running with it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, yeah. So would you mind if I segued into this new
that
thing that we're
not at
getting ready to
all.
do?
Please.
So speaking of the mentorship and stuff like that, um, we get questions of chickens all the time, right? And so we're getting ready to launch this new um, website called Raising Tiny Dinosaurs. And on here, this is our beta group we're doing right now. So we're looking for um, basically we're looking for 100 folks right now who will join us with the beta group, and this is really designed for your backyard um, kind of operation. Your 2 to 6 chickens. You're trying to learn about how do I raise chickens in my backyard kind of concept. And so we have some coaches that we're working with on here. So um, that we'll end up doing. We're doing what we call the Poultry Power Hour each month. And so, like, there's me and my wife and my son, and then we
Yeah.
have Elizabeth and Lonnie from Mountain Spring Homestead are going to be on here with us. Grant Jones from Hungry Hollow Farm, David Rapoon from Sky Valley Farm, and David Whitaker from Oak Meadows Farm are all going to be on here. And then we also just got Misha and Andrew from Bright Eyed Acres are going to join us as well. But what's fun with this is that we get to, there's a forum in here, so it's all built so that you get coaches or answering the forum questions, people who have lifetime experiences inside of this, not just, um, Joe Snuffy who just happens to read your post and go, I read this on backyardpoultry.com, and this will work, Instead, this is going to be answered. It'll still have community answers inside of this, but yet, it's made to have professional answers behind it. And then with our poultry power hour, that's once a month, we're doing a Zoom call, kind of like this, but we're making it so that everybody can call in. We'll have our panel live on there.
Wow.
And as we're discussing, we'll be discussing a topic that month. This month, in the month of August, we're going to be doing heat stress, and how to help your birds through heat stress and all the different things that can come about that. And then at the end, in the last 20 minutes, we'll open the floor. People can raise their hand in Zoom and ask the panel a question directly and get some direct feedback from these folks who have been raising probably hundreds of thousands of chickens over the years. Cumulatively, I believe we have over 100 years of poultry experience behind the panel now. And so, it'll give us that ability to have a lot of good feedback inside of it while allowing people to learn and grow and then help us build. So the beta group is really designed to help us build the community behind it so that when we launch the full product, it will be a paid product that is inside of there. But it allows us to build the product to have a lot of depth behind it. So if you don't mind, I'm gonna play our little
No, you should,
video here
please.
real quick.
Please.
And let me start it over and put my sound back into it.
Hey there, I'm Becca.
And I'm Brad.
And welcome to Raising Tiny Dinosaurs.
We're launching this new platform where we're seeking people who are passionate about chickens to help us shape it.
Join our exclusive beta group and become a tiny dinosaur wrangler.
With this group, you get expert guidance, access to our community, and you get the chance to join our monthly Poultry Power Hour.
For this Poultry Power Hour, we have designed a panel of expert farmers who we know who are going to join us, and they're going to be coaches along with us. And during this time, you will be able to ask questions and we can give answers and we can have this amazing community.
It's going to be really good. You get online with Zoom and you get to join in, and we'll have different topics of discussion each month. And as we go through it, at the end of the time, you get to raise your hand and ask us questions about your poultry, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, or whatever. You get to sign in and join us with that.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
So join our beta group today. Help us shape this great community, and we'll see you on the inside.
Oh, it's awesome. Brad, I love it. I think there's a huge need for sure. And it goes to your point, right? Of mentorship. I mean, you're getting experts to share, tried and true methods, walk through some troubleshooting, and so forth. And really, all to me, farming at this sort of homestead level, it's all about confidence because, when something happens, because it's not if, when the fence breaks, right? When the chicken hawk dive bombs and grabs one of your, it's going to happen. So how do you sort through that? How do you not panic? How do you not give up? And really, I would add kind of philosophically, your why. Why is it that you're doing it? Is it because, purely based on what you want to control what you eat, you're worried about Armageddon and, dystopia and all that, or, what's the reason behind all this? And then, having professionals really like you guys and the community you're creating behind it, I think is really, really needed, and it's exciting. Yeah. It'll be a lot of fun. So if anybody wants to join us on there, it's raisingtinydinosaurs.com. It is open for people to join up at this point. So we'll make sure we add it to the show notes for sure. And on that note, how can people support you in the feed store and find out more information about what it is you guys are doing?
Yeah, so I mean, essentially, we have a couple of different channels that, if somebody's not local around us, we have our YouTube channel is the Redbridge Farm on YouTube. You can certainly follow us there. The big one right now is the tiny dinosaurs. That's our big focus at the moment. So, and that's open to anybody across the world. Anybody can join that and get that input. We really want to build that and make that a high quality product, just like any of the other products that we're building, whether it's feed or not, we want that in this community as well. So that way people are getting that guidance behind them. So the beta group's the time where we can build that and get customer feedback on that before we go full launch on it. So we're also inside of that. We're developing the Raising Tiny Dinosaur Boot Camp right now, which is
Nice.
it's on a fully virtual boot camp to take you from I don't know anything about raising chickens to I feel very confident about having chickens in my backyard and I know what to do kind of concept. And so we're making all that. All that's going to be on the Raising Tiny Dinosaurs website once we get it all built out. But we need the help of people to hop on there who are wanting to learn um, and can give us feedback at the same time as they go through it. They don't have to have chickens right now. If they're going to get chickens, this is a great opportunity to learn about that and be able to ask our different panel questions and all that kind of stuff. So
That's really
yeah,
cool. And your product is in of co-ops and other feed stores. It's not
yep,
just in Kettle Falls. People don't necessarily have to drive out to your place, but they can, right?
yeah. And on our website, theredbridgefarm.com, they can look and put in their zip code and be able to see um, they can put in their zip code on there and be able to see if we are in their area or what's around them and be able to find our feed in there. So,
That's awesome. Well, a couple of quick fun questions to wrap it up so people can get to know you if you don't mind. What is the last book you read?
so the last one that I read, I'm doing a couple right now. So, um, the last big one was the book called Launch was, because it's business side and, um, and it's by, oh, what's the author's name? I always forget his name. I shouldn't forget it, but I do. Um, I don't remember. Anyway,
That's all right.
book's called Launch.
Launch. Okay, cool.
Um, that was the main one, and then I have another one I'm going through called Green right now. Um, I don't remember the author of that one either. Um, terrible with the names.
That's all good.
Um, but it's good
So
stuff.
it's always nice to know that you're reading, though. Let's be honest. Just
Yeah.
kidding. When scrolling through your, cable TV lineup and you're passing through channel surfing, what's a movie that you always pause and stop and watch at least a few minutes almost every time you pass through?
It would have to be either Star Wars or the Lord of the Rings series. Those are always good ones. I'd the Lord of the Rings is one of my favorites, to really get into that. Uh, Probably
Yeah,
that one.
that's
Any of
perfect.
those three.
Yeah, I love it. And last one, what's one skill you do not currently have, but you kind of wish you possessed?
Ooh. Um, yeah, that's a good one. I don't know. I mean, I think there would be, certainly the skill of patience sometimes I think would be not that I don't possess the ability to have patience, but I I dive headfirst into things. Um, and sometimes that's good, sometimes that gets me in a lot of trouble. Sometimes I just have to sit and wait and allow things to develop before I jump, but I'm not very good at that.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Which
I
is
was,
probably why we're where we are, because I
right.
just dove straight into
Just
this
go
thing,
for it.
Yeah.
I remember somebody years ago said, "Hey, don't pray for patience because then you're just going to get more opportunities to practice."
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
Well, Brad, I really appreciate you taking a few minutes with us and capturing your story and some of the cool projects that you're working on now. And we're definitely going to share in our, spots that people, follow us and all that sort of thing, what it is
Yeah.
that you're doing. I'd love to see more of your feed sold and you consumed around Western Washington. We are such huge fans. We're never going to go to anything else. We've just been so happy with the finished product, meaning, you cut open the pork, you cut open the beef, you cut open the chicken, and they're just super healthy and ultimately delicious. And we're
Right.
confident that the nutrition levels there. And so we appreciate what you're doing and we wish you the very best as you continue to build all this.
Well, thank you very much. And it's a lot of fun to hear the feedback, and to understand that people still see it. Every year I hear it, but it's always great to hear it, because it's ultimately why we're doing this. We want you to have that high quality product and be super excited about having that for your customers and for your family.
Love it. All right. Thanks, Brad.
Yeah, no problem.
We'll talk
Thanks
to you
for having
later.
me.
You
All
got
right.
it. Bye.